Hi, this is Remembering the Past, the show where we talk about people who died recently who've had a profound effect on our history, our society, or our culture. And in our ongoing series on Medal of Honor winners, tonight we're going to talk about technician Robert Maxwell, who died recently at the age of 98. He was America's oldest surviving Medal of Honor winner. He earned his medal in World War II in eastern France on September 7, 1944, for falling on a live German grenade and saving the lives of his fellow soldiers. He was badly wounded and was officially awarded the Medal of Honor at a ceremony at a military hospital in Denver in May of 1945. During World War II, servicemen received 464 Medals of Honor. A majority, 266, were awarded for bravery in which the recipient was killed or died soon after from wounds. With Technician Maxwell's passing, there are just 3 living Medal of Honor recipients from World War II. Technician Maxwell's Medal of Honor award from the Congressional Medal of Honor website reads as follows. Robert D. Maxwell, technician, 5th grade, born October 26, 1920, Boise, Idaho. Date of issue 5/12/1945. Place date near Besançon, France. 7 September 1944. Organization U.S. Army. Division 7th Infantry, 3rd Infantry Division. For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at risk of life above and beyond the call of duty on 7 September 1944, near Besançon, France, technician 5th grade Maxwell and 3 other soldiers armed with only .45 caliber automatic pistols defended the battalion observation post against an overwhelming onslaught by enemy infantrymen, approximately platoon strength, supported by 20mm flak and machine gun fire, who had infiltrated through the battalion's forward companies and were attacking the observation post with machine gun, machine pistol, and grenade fire at ranges as close as 10 yards. Despite a hail of fire from automatic weapons and grenade launchers, Technician 5th grade Maxwell aggressively fought off advancing enemy elements and, by his calmness, tenacity, and fortitude, inspired his fellows to continue the unequal struggle. When an enemy hand grenade was thrown in the midst of his squad, Technician 5th grade Maxwell unhesitatingly hurled himself squarely upon it, using his blanket and his unprotected body to absorb the full force of the explosion. This act of instantaneous heroism permanently maimed Technician 5th grade Maxwell, but saved the lives of his comrades in arms and facilitated maintenance of vital military communications during the temporary withdrawal of the battalion's forward headquarters. And his honors briefly made the newsreels in 1945 as one of President Roosevelt's last acts.
The Congressional Medal of Honor, the country's highest award, is presented to Corporal Robert D. Maxwell. It was one of President Roosevelt's last acts to sign the citation for the corporal who distinguished himself in the Battle of France.
In the newsreel, they called him Corporal Maxwell. He did wear 2 stripes, but he was actually a technician 5th grade, which was sort of equivalent to a corporal. Technician Maxwell was born in Idaho, and during the Depression, his family bounced around between the Midwest and the West Coast. They moved to Kansas, then moved to Oregon to pick fruit, then back to Kansas, and when money ran low, they settled in Colorado, which is where he was drafted in 1942. He was a Quaker, but he declined conscientious objector status, and he was trained to string heavy wire for telephone lines at the battlefront. He was sent to Italy and took part in the Battle of Anzio, a very bloody battle, in 1944. He was awarded the Silver Star and the Purple Heart for his fighting in Italy and was sent to a military hospital in Naples. 2 months later, he was sent to southern France as part of the mop-up operation for Operation Dragoon. Operation Dragoon was the military amphibious landing on the southern coast of France. It was supposed to take place in concert with the Normandy landing, but the Allies simply didn't have enough resources to do both, so they concentrated on Normandy on D-Day. Fortunately for Operation Dragoon, the southern French coast was lightly defended by the Germans, so it wasn't an especially difficult operation, and that's probably why most people have never heard of it. After Operation Dragoon ended, the troops were to march through eastern France, take that territory, and ultimately meet up with the Allies who had landed at Normandy and were fighting in western France, and they would meet either in the northern tip of France or in Germany. Besançon, where Technician Maxwell was awarded his Medal of Honor, was a crossroads in northeastern France. Here, Technician Maxwell tells his story of what happened on September 7th, 1944.
My grandpa was a Quaker, and we had quite a lot of relationship together, talking and so forth, and he had quite an influence on my life. So I guess I envisioned myself as a conscientious objector, but when Pearl Harbor happened and other people around me were going to war, I felt that it was not only my duty but my privilege to serve the country. I'm not sure why, but after extensive weapons training, then I wound up in a non-combat position as a telephone wireman.
Despite the benefit of a largely pacifist upbringing, technician Robert Maxwell nonetheless found himself thrust into the heat of combat on September 7, 1944, in the small border town of Besançon, France.
Besançon is a crossroads city in the area between France, Switzerland, and Germany. Colonel Henkes set up our headquarters in a stone building, which it was a house, somebody's house. The stone wall was erected about 3 or 4 feet high, surrounding the house. We were stationed behind the wall in a defensive position, and the rifle companies were supposedly out on each flank, to our left and to our right. The Germans had apparently infiltrated past the rifle companies. Now this I didn't know at the time, I learned it later, that they were surrounding the command post and it was in danger of being captured. It was probably 2 o'clock in the morning, sometime about then. Several grenades had been thrown against the wire and they bounced off and landed outside the courtyard, and of course nothing happened. They exploded harmlessly on the outside of the wall. But one of them must have come through a hole in the fence or something. I'm not sure how it got there. But I heard it land. I couldn't see any sign of it. I looked at what I thought about doing, picking the grenade up and throwing it back as the worst possible thing I could have done, other than get up and run. Because with the grenade in my hand ready to throw back, it would have gone off, and there would have been quite a bit of devastation in the command post. Realizing the time was up, and all I could do was just grab my blanket, shove it up to my chest, and drop one. When I came to, there was no one around. The command post had been evacuated, and everyone was gone. I got up on my feet and staggered over to the door of the house. I thought I heard someone inside. Sure enough, there was Lieutenant Johnson taking the wire off the phone. And I said, "Lieutenant, could you help me back to the rear? I think kind of bad shape." He said, "Well, you wait till I get the wire off the phone and we'll go." So I draped an arm over his shoulder and bled all over him, and we left. The grenade had taken off quite a portion of my instep just ahead of my right heel. And of course, my left arm bicep muscle was torn out, and left temple was hit about a 1/4 inch from my eye. Most of those things I didn't feel too much except my foot, and I started grumbling about that. Lieutenant Johnson says, "We got to get out of here. The Germans are right behind us." So we kept going until pretty soon a Jeep came along. I remember laying across the hood of the Jeep, Lieutenant Johnson inside. We went back to the aid station.
Maxwell's decisive action saved the lives of his 3 comrades, keeping Allied communications open during the temporary withdrawal of the battalion's forward headquarters.
It's not the case that I was brave or a hero or anything like that, because I just did what the only alternative was at the time, and there was nothing else to do.
Later in life, as many Medal of Honor winners do, he talks to school children.
The thing that I think is the biggest loss to a soldier is when one of his friends gets lost. I was walking along the road one day, laying wire, and as I approached the bridge, there was one of my friends laying on the road. He had stepped on a landmine. Now, this mine was designed to destroy a vehicle. Imagine what it would do to a person when he stepped on it. But that's a terrible loss. You never can get over that. And that's the thing I think the greatest loss that I've experienced. I want you to reflect on fighting for America. There is probably no greater honor to a soldier. I think you'll find that this is true right now. Afghanistan and Iraq, no greater honor for a soldier than to fight for America. You know, not all of us have the privilege of doing this. It's important that you remain faithful.
Well, Technician Maxwell settled back in Oregon, and he became active in veterans programs as well as programs for school children. And there's a bridge named in Deschutes County, his home county, named for him. According to the Congressional Medal of Honor Society, after Technician Maxwell's death, the oldest Medal of Honor winner recipient surviving is now Charles Coolidge, who's 97 years old and lives in Tennessee. An Army technical sergeant serving in World War II, he received the Medal of Honor for combat in France in October of 1944. Well, I'm going to close on that note. I want to thank my producer and IT genius, Sid Tepps. Technician Maxwell, our gratitude is unlimited. We cannot begin to repay the debt that we owe you.
The Medal of Honor, when I wear it, it seems like a heavy weight on my neck, that I'm not wearing the medal for any personal deeds, but I'm wearing it because it represents all the casualties that we had in the war, represents those who were killed defending their country and the ideals that they believed in. Paul Harvey says there are two things in America that represents peace, and one is the Cross of Christ, and the other is the Congressional Medal of Honor. And I thought that was quite amazing that he would say that. There's no similarity until you get to thinking about it. Christ gave his life to save the world, and in a way we're giving our lives to gain freedom for the world, not particularly for America, but for all countries.